Well, it's demonstration time again, year 11s, and today we're making Beachworth Bakery meat pies. They're absolutely delicious. We're making the bottom pastry, which is like a rough puff pastry, and I'm using bought puff pastry for the top. So what I'm going to do first is make the pastry. So the pastries, it's a really bit of a weird one, but it works. So it's 3/4 of a cup, so it's half a cup, 1/4 of a cup of plain flour. And I'm going to sift that. You can either put the salt in now, but I've put it in my other cup for later. So you have 2 lots of plain flour. And then into that we put our butter. So this is 85 grams. If you haven't got a scale, that's okay. Just use the lines on your butter wrapping that you have at home. Okay, now we're going to rub this in. Now I've cheated a little bit. I put my butter in the microwave for 20 seconds to soften it a bit. Otherwise you're here all day. Now this looks a bit weird because there's so much butter to flour that the butter just gets all gluggy, but try and keep rubbing it in as much as you can. So there we go. It's really gluggy. I've got my knife there. I'll get all of that off my fingers. No other way you can rub in except using your fingers. So I'll get that all off. Now, just bear with me while I wash my hands. Now what you do now, which seems totally against everything you've thought about, you put milk in it. It's 125 mils of water. And then what you're doing is you're making into like a paste almost, and just keep cutting through it, mixing it through as much as you can. Break up that butter. I'm using a knife because a butter knife helps you cut through it and mix it really well. So I'm quite happy with that. It mixed through well. Then I've got my 2nd cup of flour. I've got to put salt on the top of this one. I'm going to just pop it in. And there's that one done. So I've got 2 lots of flour in here now. The first one was 3/4 of a cup. This one is a cup. And you mix it and you cut it at the same time. You get to a point where you know with flour you've got to get your hand in there. We don't want to over mix it. Nothing worse than a tough pastry. So I'm quite happy with that now. It's coming together. I'm just going to quickly get it into a ball, and it's done. Okay, now that needs to rest for about 10 minutes, so I would put Glad wrap over that and put that in the fridge. Now, we also have to cook our meat, and this is very easy to do. That's for my meat for later. I'll just tidy up as we go, which, as you know, in cooking is very important to keep everything tidy. So it's a really easy one. You put your meat in. You put 100 mils of water in. You put a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and a 1/2 teaspoon of tomato sauce. You put 1/8 of a teaspoon. So look, it's only a tiny amount. It's if you gave a teaspoon, you would chop it up into 4. Nutmeg, salt, pepper. Then we have something that you might not have heard of called Parisian essence. Parisian essence is a very old ingredient. It's been around forever. A bottle of this will last you years. And I think I've still got some in there. Ooh. Here we go. You need 1/2 teaspoon anyway. What happens is there's flavourings in that, and see that dark colour? that makes your pie nice and brown. So I think I've got enough in there. We come over to the stove. And all we're doing is cooking that all together, basically, until it's nice and brown. Stir it around. I've put a little bit more mince in because I had it there and I didn't want to waste it. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more water. And that's going to cook. Now, what I'm going to do is once this is brown and cooked, and you know it is because it's brown, you're going to thicken it with, it's a half a tablespoon of corn flour and 1/4 teaspoon of plain flour, and then it's 30 mils of water. So this is going to be our thickening agent for this. So you mix it up really well, get rid of any lumps. And the reason you use corn flour is because you don't really taste corn flour that much. If it was all just plain flour, it just tends to clump and you can taste that flour. So this will be cooking away, and once it gets to nice and brown, I would be adding this, and you do it very quickly because this will thicken, so you've got to stir really fast. And what you end up with, come back over here, is our meat pie and our pastry. Now, they're only small amounts. I'm only going to show you one to make one pie. So, we have our plain flour spread out. Probably a little bit too much, but that's okay. We have our pastry, which I probably left in the fridge a bit long, actually. We have our rolling pin, so make sure you roll. And see how you've got butter through it? So it's like a rough puff pastry. So that butter will melt and allow a nice light buttery pastry. So this isn't the full amount. I've just taken some from another batch I've made. So it'll be double this. You don't want it too thick. No one likes a really thick pastry, but you know, a couple of millimetres, that's fine. Now I've got my tray, and I've got my 2 cutters. That's one cutter, that's another cutter. Now I don't have all the fancy ones we have at school, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is grease over the sink 6 of these. And, sorry, I'm going to get my big cutter and make a cut. And place it in here, push it down. I'm going to get my meat, which is cooled. So my pastry's nice. My meat has cooled a little bit after it's thickened. And then I'm going to get my other cutter. I'm going to do a top. So we need a little bit of water, and we're going to wet the top of our pastry so that our pastries stick together, and we push down. Now you can use a fork if you want to, and I would make 6 out of this batch. But the magic of video, ta-da! I have made square ones. As you can see, it's nice and brown around the sides and the top. We've got the flaky pastry on the top, and we've got the short crust on the bottom. So that is how to make Beachworth Bakery meat pies. Fantastic, delicious. Okay, catch you later. Bye.